In any modern application, you're going to need some way to link between your different pages to allow a user to navigate between different pages. And in Next.js, they give you a link component kind of right out of the box. Now, if we go to their docs here, you'll see that link is a built-in component that extends the HTML A tag to provide prefetching and client-side navigation between routes. It is the primary and recommended way to navigate between routes in Next.js. And the very basic example of it is you import link from next link, and then you render it somewhere within your page, wherever you want a link to be. And then you provide an href to that link. And this can just be a relative path to where you want to navigate to. So in this example, href equals string / dashboard would link the user to your / dashboard page. And I'm of course going to show some different examples of this as well. But to go to the actual link API here within the Next.js docs, I'll make sure to link both of these in the description below. I kind of discussed the basic usage right here, but there are some different props that you can pass to the link component. So the first one, of course, is the href prop, and that's basically where you want to navigate to. So / dashboard is going to navigate you to the / dashboard page. Now you can customize this a little bit more to where you can actually pass an object to href, and then one property of that object can be path name, and that links to whatever path name you want to navigate to. But then you can add query parameters by adding a query prop name, and then that can be an object to where you can have key value pairs of what you want your query parameter to be. So if we added this href right here, it would link us to / about, and then for a query parameter, it would put name is equal to test. So in my code here, you can see that I have this link examples page, and I use this link component, importing it from next link, and I'm in a server component here. So this is a great way to navigate server side, as there are other ways to do programmatic navigation in Next.js, but some of those are going to be client side. But here you can see I render this link component. I have my href. I pass in an object to my href prop. One of the properties of the object is a / about string on my path name property. So it's going to link to / about. And then my other property is query, and the key value pair is name test. So if we come back to my running application, if I click on go to about page with query params, then I go to my very elaborately styled about page here, and I just scroll down there quick so you can actually see my URL. Makes sense on a video regarding linking. But here we have about $name equals test. So you can see here again, if I click this link, it adds these query params because I added query, name is test. If I switch this to maybe Code Ryan, and then I click this link again, you can see my name is equal Code Ryan now, because I just changed the value of my name property within my query property for my href. So you can customize this href prop a little bit more. Now, what you could also do is we can use the replace property, and using replace will replace the current history of the state instead of adding a new entry. So this is going to be similar to using like window.replace in just basic HTML. And if we scroll down to my example here, you can see that I have a link component, and then I have an href / dashboard. So I want to navigate to the dashboard, and you can put your classes for your CSS or Tailwind CSS. This example is Tailwind, but you can style these links directly, just like you might with an A tag. But then I add this replace prop. So if we look at the behavior of this, and I think this one's easier to just see the behavior of it. If I click replace here, it navigates to my dashboard as we expect. But if I hit this back button, you can see that it doesn't go anywhere because it replaced the current browser history. So no longer does the browser history have that I was sitting on localhost. It just has / dashboard because it replaced it. It doesn't just add it to the browser history. So when I click the back button, I have nowhere to go back to because it just replaced it. So if we do this again, If I click replace, try to hit back, see it doesn't go anywhere because it replaced it. But if I look at my first example where I don't use the replace prop and I navigate to my about page and then I click the back button, you see it takes me back to localhost 3000 because I didn't use the replace prop there. It just added it to the browser history or the browser stack. But in this case, it replaced it. So it doesn't really have any localhost to go back to because it replaced it with /dashboard. And there are some cases where you might want to use that. Now you can also use the scroll prop. So this one is a little kind of nuanced at times to where you can definitely read about the scroll prop more kind of in their docs here. And I'll link this API reference in the docs where you can kind of learn more about it. But to kind of give you the TLDR here of what this says, the default behavior or scrolling behavior of LINQ is to maintain scroll position. So when you navigate to a new page, scroll position will stay the same as long as the page is visible in the viewport. But if that's not visible, it tries to scroll it to the top of the page or to the top of the first element on the page. But when scroll is false, it doesn't attempt to scroll to the top of the page. So in our example here, I'm going to scroll down. And if we look at my code here, down to the scroll example, you can see it's linking to dashboard. And then I set scroll to equal false. And that's for this link right here. So I'm going to scroll down here as so, and then I'm going to click navigate without scrolling. And you can see here on the dashboard page, it kind of just put me in the middle of the page, like it maintained this scroll position here to where it didn't scroll me all the way to the top. It links me a little bit down on the page here. So when scroll is to false, it's not going to scroll you back up to the top of the page if the page is not visible in the viewport. But if I come back to my code and I comment this line of code out, and then we come back and I'm going to refresh just to make sure everything is kind of reset here. But if now on the scroll button, I click on it, you see it scrolls me to the top of my dashboard page because I now have that default scrolling behavior enabled. And if I make it false again, and then we come back and I refresh here quick and then I click on it, you see that it puts me kind of more in the middle of the page because with it being set to false, it no longer is going to scroll me back up to the top of the page. So a behavior that sometimes you might want to have. Now, for the prefetch prop, I don't have a great example hooked up to this right now, but I feel like it's fairly straightforward from their docs here, to where prefetching happens when a LINQ component enters the user's viewport. Next.js prefetches and loads the linked route and its data in the background to improve performance for client-side navigations. If the prefetch data has expired by the time the user hovers over a link, Next.js will attempt to fetch it again, and it is only enabled in production. So you can set this prefetch prop here. You can set it to 3 different values. Null is prefetch behavior depends on whether the route is static or dynamic. For static, the full route will be prefetched. For dynamic routes, the partial route down to the nearest segment with a loading JS boundary will be prefetched. And if it's set to true, the full route will be prefetched for both static and dynamic routes. For false, prefetching will never happen both on entering the viewport and on hover. So basically, you can manipulate this prefetch prop here to determine the behavior of when you want Next.js to load that linked route that it has here in your href. So you can determine, like if my href is dashboard, do I want Next.js to kind of load that dashboard route ahead of time or in the background when my link kind of appears on the page, or how do I want that behavior to be? And for most use cases, I feel like you're just not going to manipulate this prefetch prop. I haven't really run into too many issues with it, but there, of course, could be times where you need to manipulate this. So just know that for the link component, you can manipulate that prefetching behavior. And I'll just, when the time comes, I'll just come check out the docs. But by default, you can just not set the prefetch prop and then see if you run into any issues. But it does kind of go to show it is important to kind of test your apps in production because certain behaviors like this can be a little bit different. But yeah, that basically covers the primary and recommended way to link in Next.js. Hopefully that gives you a good idea of how this link component works. And it should be basically everything you need to know to effectively use this component. So thanks for tuning into this, and I'll see you in that next one.